Hey everyone, I'm using Google Castify to practice for my classroom next fall, but I wanted to talk to some friends about uh, just the basic election analysis that I've been reading and what I've been following. This video is going to be about the Electoral College and the Joe Biden versus Donald Trump and show you what I have been seeing. I'm going to start at election projection. Election Projection is a projection site. They post analysis, collect polls, have other pundits make selections, and then they try to aggregate all that data to make some choices about how they predict things will go. If you look at the presidential election tab, you can then scroll down and it'll give you a map, which is pretty cool. Interesting things on this page are that they're projecting Joe Biden to pick up 334 electoral college pages. If you've watched this page for a while, you know that it has a little bit of a Republican tilt toward it, a conservative tilt towards it. So the fact they have Joe Biden up by 130 electoral college votes is pretty substantial. Interesting things to look at is that they have Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina all going to Joe Biden. These most people would have thought would have been difficult for them to pick up, but those things they have going in the Democrats' favor. Pennsylvania also Trump picked up in 2016, and it looks like he's behind there. And then you talk about Michigan, that would be enough to flip this election. But this is just one projection site, and so one group of pundits looking at that. We'll take a look at the Senate map in a separate video, but I just wanted to show you election projection. But since that's only one site, then we can look at Real Clear Politics, and they aggregate polls as well. Just quickly, I'm going to point out that they have a betting section here, and you can open that up. And I covered that in a different video, but it shows that there's a 25-point difference in people who think that Joe Biden is going to win the election as opposed to Donald Trump. But I first like to go to latest polls. I start there usually. And yesterday was an interesting day because they released almost 20 different election polls yesterday, and all of them favor Joe Biden right through here. So you're talking about California, even Texas, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, etc. And so that is all very, very interesting. Then I'd like to go to the Electoral College map. And in their Electoral College map, they show Joe Biden with 222 votes and Donald Trump with 125 and 191 toss-up states. But if you look at their toss-up states carefully, you're going to see that Florida, a toss-up state, Joe Biden is actually, by their aggregation of polling, is up by 6.8 percentage points. That's a lot. That's outside the margin of error for most of those polls. Pennsylvania, Joe Biden up by 6.3% of the vote. Michigan by 8.6% of the vote. And Arizona up by 4 percentage points, still outside the margin of error. And so if you look at these things, you can clearly see, even though they're counting a lot of those things as toss-up states, they're not really toss-ups, and they favor the Democrats in a great deal in the Electoral College. Another site is 270 Win. What's interesting here is you can choose a consensus map, and it'll set it how they believe the consensus is going between pundits, polling, and a bunch of other information. And then you can actually flip and make your own map by flipping things. So you can say, like, well, so this is where they are, 248 to 204. But what happens if the Democrats win Florida? And so then you can reset the map again. But if just that one state, 277, you would flip the Electoral College to the Democrats. And so this is really interesting. So they have 248 to 204 that have already been settled. But what's interesting on this page is if you go to their polling map has 301 Electoral College votes for Biden and 114 for Donald Trump. And so that is very, very interesting. And then the last thing I want to show you with this video is PredictIt, and they have a big gap, a 23-point gap with Biden ahead of Trump on the PredictIt site. And this is where people bet to see how they think it's going to go.